It's quite an honor. Um, I don't feel like I've done anything spectacular to earn this award.
Well, with Moving with Love, I think Moving with Love is super important. It's really helped me navigate myself when I feel down.
If I could inspire some students to, I guess, stand up for this cause and actually bring people together, it'd be fantastic.
I met with administrators in the Honors College, and I encouraged them to take action and create a plan of how can we better educate students about consent.
My ethical leadership is not to really lead anyone. My goal is not to lead anyone. My goal is to encourage you to want to do that on your own.
I don't think I ever thought I'd be getting this award for ethical leadership and talking about sexual violence.
Award winners and nominators, parents and family members, friends and allies, and honored guests. Welcome to the 14th Annual Stand-Up Awards ceremony. My name is Ted Toadvine, and I direct the Rock Ethics Institute, which promotes engaged ethics research and ethical leadership from its home in Penn State's College of the Liberal Arts. The Rock Ethics Institute inaugurated the annual Stand-Up Awards in 2008 to honor undergraduate students at Penn State who demonstrate the courage to stand behind a cause, idea, or belief as they exhibit ethical leadership on campus and in the community. This year's awardees, Timothy, Nyla, and Amy, you exemplify the courage and fortitude that our world so needs today. The Rock Ethics Institute is honored to count you among our Stand-Up Award recipients, and we look forward to the ways that you will shape our shared future for the better. We also extend our warmest thanks to your families and to your mentors who have supported you in ways that have made you the leaders that you are today. The guiding vision of the Stand-Up Awards is that doing the right thing is always the right thing, and that extraordinary acts are possible even in the most challenging of times. Certainly, this last year counts as one of the most difficult in a generation. For many of us, just managing to put one foot in front of the other has seemed to take more energy and willpower than before. We've seen growing financial precarity for many who have lost jobs and livelihoods, the hardening of political animosities and the breakdown of civil discourse, acts of racist aggression against Asians and Asian Americans, and the increasing visibility of ubiquitous police violence against Black and brown bodies. All of this has unfolded under the shadow of the continuing COVID-19 pandemic, which has taken more than 3 million lives worldwide and approaching 600,000 deaths in the United States. Ashton Verdry, a sociologist here at Penn State, has calculated that every person lost to COVID leaves behind, on average, 9 close relatives: parents, grandparents, children, brothers, sisters, spouses. That means 5 million people in the United States alone are grieving a family member before we even add in their friends, their cousins, their coworkers, their classmates. Because of social distancing, so many who have lost a loved one have not been able to travel, to be at their side, to say goodbye, to gather for memorials, or even to be with others who can support them in their grief. And while we have all suffered from this loss, we have not had to carry it equally, since COVID deaths have been higher among Indigenous, Latinx, and Black communities. Those taken had so much more to give and to live for. Even when we are finally able to remove our masks and to see each other's faces in person once again, those who were taken this year will still be gone. Perhaps the best that we can do is to remember them and grieve them together. In July of last year, Allentown native Juan Garcia became the first Penn State student to lose his life to COVID. He was only 21. I do not know how many other Penn State students and alumni have lost their lives since. We were devastated to learn that one of the very first stand-up award winners, Desiree Martin, passed away from COVID in December. Desiree graduated in 2008 from Penn State Fayette with a degree in Human Development and Family Studies, and she received the stand-up award that year for her work on diversity and inclusion. The Chancellor of Penn State Fayette, Emmanuel Asagi, invited Desiree to serve as the campus's first Diversity Affairs Chair. Among her activities in that role were organizing a semester-long tribute to the life and legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., and also initiating a wheelchair challenge that asked students to negotiate the campus in wheelchairs in order to better understand the daily lives of their disabled peers. In a moment, I want to share with you a brief interview with Desiree from 2008. And following the video, I invite Chad Long to offer some reflections. Chad is Director of Student Services at Penn State Fayette, and he knew Desiree during her student years there. I'm sure that we can all agree that this has been an incredibly difficult year, one that none of us will soon forget. And I can only imagine what it has been like to be a student through it all. Frankly, I am in awe of our award winners for their courageous leadership in the midst of such turbulent times. At the Rock Ethics Institute, we view the Stand-Up Award not as a conclusion, but as a beginning. You are not only Stand-Up Award winners today, but from now on. And we stand with you today and in the future. I am delighted to have this opportunity to say thank you. Thank you for inspiring us, for giving us hope, and for setting an example for all of us and for all of Penn State. We know that the world will be a better place as you bring your courage and your passion to new challenges in the years ahead. And now let us take a moment to remember Desiree Martin and her gift to our community.
Watching on campus, I was noticing some things with our younger people that quite frankly shocked me, because I thought because they're the now generation that the old biases shouldn't be so prevalent in them, and I was seeing that that wasn't so, and it kind of disturbed me. So I was able to voice this to other students and in class and to some of the faculty and staff. And so when we got our new chancellor, Dr. Asagi, he's very much for diversity, and my name kept coming up to him when he would ask about students who could help with this movement on campus. And I believe what we do on campus, because we're a smaller campus and we're a commuter campus, so most of our students live in the area. I believe what we do on campus in education goes out into the community. What I was hearing on campus was everyone thinks that diversity has to do with race or culture, but really what we've been taught in human development is diversity touches everyone. So I wanted to try to stay away from the standard, and so I incorporated gay and lesbian, transgendered, people with physical disabilities, and just what is diversity away from, like I said, the racial and cultural. And so that's what started. And then I just started thinking of people who I knew were in those fields that could come and present. And two of the people were right here from the University Park campus. So that was great. It was sort of in my own backyard. And they were very knowledgeable and they were very happy to help out.
Good afternoon. I'm honored and privileged to give a few remarks remembering Desiree Martin and celebrating her life and how she exemplified the ethical leadership of the Rock Institute Stand Up Award. During Desiree's time here at Penn State Fayette, the Eberly campus, she served as a work study here in the Office of Student Affairs and helped manage our student center, as well as assisting with student activities, events, and programs. I remember Desiree always keeping me on my toes and ensuring that we were staying on task. Desiree was highly engaged on campus. She served as several student-run organizations, including a senator in the Student Government Association and president of the Adult Student Organization. I'll always remember her endless enthusiasm and her boundless energy. She was always able to maintain engagement in numerous activities, yet always successfully completed the task at hand. But most notable, Desiree served as the vice president of the Diversified Student Association, an organization committed to diversity, inclusion, and equity. She understood that inclusion was and is fundamental to our university's values and mission, and to support all members of our community. She always took action to address bias and inequities and inequalities. So many of you know that, who do know me, know that I never delete anything or throw anything away. And actually, Desiree would always holler at me for these hoarder-like behaviors. But when I was invited to share a few remarks today, I looked back through some old files, and I actually have this poster from 2008 about an event that Desiree organized entitled Celebrate Diversity Week. And this was a week-long event that addressed different topics each day, including LGBT+, disability, race, culture, gender, and so much more. Desiree used her privilege and her voice to stand up for those who couldn't. We know that the Stand Up Award recipients demonstrate the courage to stand behind a cause, an idea, or belief, and exhibit ethical leadership on campus and in our community. Desiree truly embodied the spirit of this award. And like all former recipients, she's left a lasting impact on this university and so many individuals, including myself. Desiree is and will truly be missed, but her legacy lives on. I want to thank the Rock Ethics Institute for inviting me to remember Desiree and share her story and her everlasting legacy. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Chad. We are deeply grateful to you for sharing those remarks and helping us better understand who Desiree was and the core values that motivated her. Hello, everyone watching today. My name is Ben Jones, and I am the Assistant Director of the Rock Ethics Institute. We will now be moving to the main part of today's program, which is recognizing and celebrating the 2021 Stand Up Award winners, Timothy Benally, Nyla Holland, and Amy Mook. The devastating impact of the pandemic has been felt throughout the Stand Up family, including this year's winners. Some lost loved ones to COVID-19. Each of them have had their junior and senior years turned upside down, as Penn State and government at the local, state, and federal levels have scrambled to respond to a once-in-a-century public health crisis. While engaging in work to advance justice, some of our winners have been the targets of vicious attacks and harassment. In short, this year's honorees all have had to bear burdens they didn't ask for and shouldn't have had to bear, especially given their young age. But it is under these sorts of conditions that ethical leadership becomes most evident, and we gain the greatest insight into it. Being an ethical leader is a marathon, not a sprint. Such leadership develops over time through practice, habit, and continual growth. And true ethical leadership persists even in the face of resistance, when doing the right thing comes with real cost. Such resilience defines this year's Stand Up Award winners, Amy, Nyla, and Tim. For the Rock Ethics Institute, it is an incredible honor to be able to recognize such exceptional students and ethical leaders. Sensitive to the challenges that they have faced and have overcome, we wanted to make sure to acknowledge this aspect of their journey to being named a Stand Up Award winner. When we learn about ethical leaders, especially those from the past, there's a tendency to gloss over the doubts, the uncertainties, and the difficulty they experienced. History has a tendency to portray work advancing justice as far more triumphant than the lived experiences of those actually carrying out this difficult work. The civil rights leader Bryan Stevenson made this point when the Rock Ethics Institute hosted him at Penn State a couple of years ago. "We teach the civil rights movement," said Stevenson, "like it's a 3-day carnival. On day 1, Rosa Parks refused to give up her seat on the bus. On day 2, Martin Luther King led a march on Washington. And on day 3, we just changed all the laws." If only social change were in fact that easy. As our 3 honorees can attest from their own personal experiences, working for a more just and equitable world can be incredibly frustrating at times. Too often, change occurs far more slowly than we would like it to, but we do witness progress, almost always due to dogged persistence and resilience from those who simply refuse to accept injustice. That, in a nutshell, sums up the 3 honorees we are recognizing today. They embody what the Stand Up Award represents. They are an inspiration to their fellow students, to faculty, to staff, and to their home communities. We as the Rock Ethics Institute couldn't be more proud to honor them today. So without any further delay, let's meet this year's winners. To begin, we have a video featuring 2021 Stand Up Award winner, Timothy Benally.
Right now, I'm working for the Navajo Nation Office of the Speaker, that is in the legislative branch, and I've been getting a ton of really good perspectives when it comes to the problems that are currently plaguing the nation, not only with COVID-19, but with infrastructure, water, broadband, electricity, particularly students and families living sometimes hours from the nearest grocery store, dirt roads that get messed up in the wintertime, and that just lack a lot of resources overall. I was blessed being biracial and being able to travel across the country from the Navajo Nation to Pennsylvania, and to really just get a broad perspective on life and how different each world is. I think with being in the Division of Undergraduate Studies, it was a bit difficult to nail down one subject. And I was really interested in medicine, biomedical engineering, a lot of really big name categories that I was aware of going into college, because I wasn't aware of, all the subsets of human care, and I just knew I wanted to help people. I've just kind of fallen in love with learning. In a sense, it really took me on a journey in learning about people different than me, whether that was people in the LGBTQ community, from other faiths, from other countries. I've gotten to visit Brazil and Myanmar on missions trips. That love is really the heart of why I've done everything that I've done and created what I've created. The love that God's put in my heart for people, and for appreciating people and all that they are, has really driven each one of my experiences.
I now would like to welcome to our virtual stage Dr. Victoria Sanchez, Associate Dean for Educational Equity in the College of Earth and Mineral Sciences, who will share with us more information about Tim.
Thank you. It is my pleasure and my honor to be here with you all to talk a little bit more about Tim and introduce him to you. There's so much that can be said about Timothy Benally. He is truly a remarkable young man and an ethical leader who stands up for American Indian communities. And that sounds fairly straightforward, but in reality, it's not at all, and especially here at Penn State, starting with the fact that, especially when Tim got here, there really was no American Indian community here. Even now, you can count people on your fingers. But Tim has been a large part of calling a community into existence here at Penn State, which is only one of the many, many things that he has done. Even before arriving as a Penn State student, as a first-year student, the level of maturity that he exhibited, the initiative that he took, was very refreshing. Very often, American Indian students will come to Penn State, find that there is no community, no one to connect with, and suffer in silence. Very often, those students leave and they go back home and they don't stay at Penn State. But Tim took a very different path in that he reached out before he even arrived on campus and contacted my husband, Professor John Sanchez, and myself to introduce himself and connect with us. And my husband, John Sanchez, is not able to be here today due to a meeting conflict, but I really speak on both of our behalf here today. And so we had this opportunity early on to meet with Tim, to talk with him. We would usually meet with a small group of Native students and staff members, at Panera over coffee. We brought Tim into those conversations as well, just to help him meet people and find a sense of community here. And he was very struck with that. And he was also very struck with the fact of how few people there were in a community. And so from the very, very beginning, at a time when he was just starting his studies, he also delved into how can I help? How can I make more of an American Indian community here at Penn State? And, he has done so much over the years with that. But all of that means, does that detract from his studies and from his academics? But for Tim, no, not at all. It didn't. And he mentioned in the video there, starting within DUS and really looking around for where he really fit, and finding it actually fairly quickly, in psychology, with a focus around diversity climate among ethnic minority populations. And also minoring in sustainability leadership. And so when you put these things together, it really fits for him. And it's part of that sense of community and that sense of giving back right there from the very beginning. And one of the things Tim has been just very acutely aware of is how few American Indian individuals earn a baccalaureate degree, for so many different reasons. And one of the things that he was just, very dead set on was he wasn't going to be one of those, I didn't finish college statistics. He was going to be one of those, I did finish college statistics. And I'm going to not only do that, but go on to graduate school. I'm going to research. I'm going to go as far with my education as I possibly can. To help my community, but also to serve as an inspiration for other American Indian individuals who follow him in these footsteps to college. So that's something that he has definitely done with a very high academic level. Part of that was becoming involved in the McNair Scholars Program, which is a preparatory program for graduate school and very demanding. And Tim actually became part of this program a little bit earlier than many students do, in joining in with his sophomore year. So that has given him an incredible advantage of having additional lab time, working with Dr. Jose Soto here on campus, and opportunities to present his research nationally, which I think is just an incredible opportunity and a good starting point, a first step for him, to foreshadow where the rest of his academic career will eventually go. But in addition to all of that, Tim really dove into every opportunity for leadership and service that he could, both within Penn State and much more broadly as well. He worked with offices such as the Upward Bound programs and with the Blue Band. He participated in the Ivy League National or Native American Council. And so that allowed him to attend a conference which focuses on supporting natives in higher education. And that was something that it was very important for Tim to be able to participate, to be able to attend those conferences, because that was a way to make networking connections with other individuals such as himself, American Indian youth who are in college, who are succeeding, who are building the future, and realizing that even though there may not be that community of individuals here at Penn State, there is a larger community that he can connect with. And we were very proud of him for that and for taking advantage of that as an opportunity, as a starting point. And part of that is he comes back to Penn State, and looks around and says, well, why don't we have more Native students here? What can I do? And so he began working with our Office of Undergraduate Admissions to develop an initiative to recruit and retain Native students. And that sounds easy enough to do. You should go recruit some students, but it's actually not. And it doesn't necessarily fit with the standard recruiting approach of most universities. It's a very community-based, a very family-based, a very individual approach that's needed to have success there. And Tim connected with an American Indian staff member there and others within undergraduate admissions to develop a program to, go back to his high school and the high school of this other individual, where people have connections already. And we're starting to see that turn. We're starting to see more interest among Native American students to come into Penn State. There are a lot of challenges to that, one of which is there still isn't a large enough population of students to call a community, but Tim worked very hard on that too. He's been very instrumental in forming an organization of Indigenous Peoples Student Organization to bring together the Native students who are on campus to form that community. And that organization not only is connecting with students, but also with a handful of faculty and staff members who are here. It's very exciting. I've been at Penn State close to 25 years now, and we have not had this kind of momentum, this kind of synergy, this kind of energy around it, and this number of people. It's really an incredible thing right now. And Tim has been right in the middle of all of that, helping to bring people together, including newer faculty members who have come in within the last few years. So that is a huge impact, and something that should not be, understated here. Part of what Tim has done, in conjunction with this group of people is work on a land acknowledgement statement for the university. And that also might sound fairly straightforward, but in reality, a meaningful land acknowledgement goes far beyond simply acknowledging that the land upon which we work, learn, and live was once the land of Native nations. It has to also focus on accurate representation of the specific nations and also on actions for the future to repair and rebuild relationships with those communities. So not only acknowledging past wrongs, but also moving forward in an ethical relationship in an ethical way. And for an institution such as Penn State, which is a land grant institution, this involves not only the lands within what is now Pennsylvania and the nations who did live in these areas and called these lands home, but as a land grant institution, there were hundreds of parcels of land across what is now the United States, that were sold, the funds for which supported land grant institutions such as Penn State. So there's a very long list of Native nations involved in this across the country, which makes such an effort much more complicated. But that statement, has gone through the highest university channels. It's gone through, all the reviews and is in the process right now. One of those steps is in working with the descendants of the people from those native nations who are indeed still here, even if they aren't necessarily based in the state of Pennsylvania, and developing consensus and developing understanding and developing what do we do next to move forward in that ethical relationship. So that's a tremendous amount of progress in a very short amount of time on something that is very important, you know, and in many ways very fundamental to the university as a whole. For all of this work, Tim has been recognized in a number of different ways. He is one of the United National Indian Tribal Youth Top 25 Under 25 awardees, you know, which really recognizes him as a role model to American Indian youth all over. He's won the Udall Scholarship, being the first Native at Penn State to do so. And, you know, as you saw from the video, he's been appointed to work for the Navajo Nation as part of their government within their speaker's office, which is a huge responsibility and a huge undertaking, you know, especially for someone of his age. I think he is the youngest person in the legislative branch of the Navajo Nation, and has already done so much to increase that office's social media presence and raising awareness and working on very important issues for his home community. So Tim has been a role model for many years. One of the students that I work with in my office, we were having a conversation and I mentioned Tim, and he goes, "Oh, wait a minute, I know him. I follow him on social media." You know, and it's just incredible the reach that he has and the ability that he has to inspire, especially young people, but not only young people, but especially young people in terms of their education and knowing that they too can do this. Whether they're native or not native, as was the case with this young man, he is very, very inspiring. Many mentions have been made thus far in the ceremony around COVID-19 and the impact on that, you know, and it does bear mention that for the Navajo Nation, the COVID impact has been severe, you know, and for those mentions of how many people mourn when one person is lost, this has touched Timothy and his family also, and it is even more incredible the resilience that he has shown, as have others, you know, to still move forward and do the things that he's done within that kind of a context. But I think the guiding principle for Timothy is approaching everything as a growth opportunity, both personally and professionally, an opportunity to become stronger, and all of that with the intention of serving his community, whether that be his home community of the Navajo Nation, the larger home community of Native peoples, his Penn State home community. He is always focused on service and on making things so much better. So he is an incredible role model, not just among Penn State students, his peers, his community, you know, these recognitions on a national stage. He's very inspiring, you know, and for myself, and I speak for my husband as well, you know, we are very inspired by him. We are very proud of him, so very proud of him. And we are very, very proud, you know, to call him our nephew. So, Timothy Benally.
Thank you, Dr. Sanchez. I really appreciate those sentiments. I was thinking about airtime the whole time, but I you know, it's humbling how much you paid attention and really been there for me. You and Uncle John, as I call him now, have really made Penn State a home. When I am 1973 miles from home, but it's been very humbling to work with such outstanding faculty like you guys, and to not only work with you, but call you family as well. And so for that, I thank you, and thank you to everyone else on the call. I think I had seen Miss Wanda, who gave me my first job at Penn State, and as well as like my parents, and Dr. Jose Soto, who has been instrumental in teaching me about research and professionalism and grad school and with the next steps. And I really don't know what all I've done to deserve such amazing individuals along the way. Also including my fiance Sarah, who couldn't be on the call here, but there's the announcement, I guess. But yeah, I really appreciate all of your words, and again, I'm humbled by just how much you care, or you guys have cared for me, even just to remember all these things and put it in so succinctly. And yeah, thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you so much, Tim and Dr. Sanchez. So now let us introduce our next honoree, next stand-up winner. And so we have a video featuring Nyla Holland.
I grew up in North Philadelphia. I feel like I've seen a lot of injustices when it comes to the education system, when it comes to police brutality, mass incarceration, environmental injustices. I've seen a lot. And then I transitioned to going from one of the worst schools in the city of Philadelphia to one of the best schools in Pennsylvania, and seeing the differences in resources. And obviously there are things that can be done. So what role can I play in helping those things to be done? The Zoom bombing that occurred, and we've seen a number of organizations and Black events that have been targeted by Zoom bombings, and I would think it's how myself and my organization, Black Caucus, handled that situation, knowing that student affairs and student activities are people that I should turn to immediately, to using different resources to get the word out on what happened, and seeing what does the community need after this occurred. I think to be considered in the realm of ethical leadership was just surprising, because that was something that I felt was maybe too abstract to apply to what I was doing. And then also there's so many amazing people that have gotten this award before, people that I've been friends with and looked up to. So I also didn't really consider myself worthy of the same award as they have gotten. I hope that this celebration also communicates that, like, I am one of so many leaders that are working now, have helped me through this process, and this is a culmination of all of their wisdom and their work that I have taken from and been able to leverage and build upon. It matters, and it should continue to matter and be recognized.
I'd like to welcome Dr. Anne Marie Mingo, Assistant Professor of African American Studies and Women's Gender and Sexuality Studies, who's been a mentor to Nyla, and will introduce her.
Good afternoon, everyone. It is my pleasure to introduce Nyla Holland. Nyla Holland is a poet, a justice seeker, a leader, a change maker, a scholar with a heart for people and a heart for creating the change necessary for everyone to fully flourish. A native of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, Nyla has lived out a commitment to social justice and social change for many years. I first met Nyla when she served as the executive director of the Martin Luther King Jr. Commission. And in this role, she took the initiative to attend and meet with the Forum on Black Affairs, where she was going to be able to make sure that this organization of primarily Black faculty and staff were aware of the plans for the student-led efforts for the MLK events and could create some synergies and some networking between the groups. From African American studies lectures to socio-political protests and memorials, I continue to see Nyla at various events on campus and in the community where justice and the expansion of knowledge and wisdom were the key focus areas. Having previously served as the Political Action Chair and Secretary for Black Caucus, Nyla took over the reins as the president of Black Caucus in May of 2020. A few months earlier than would have been normal, but right in the midst of social upheaval in response to the ongoing anti-Black violence, especially as it related to the policing that we were seeing in the national murders of Ahmaud Arbery and Breonna Taylor and Tony McDade and George Floyd. And as we continue to keep the focus on the police killing of Osagie Asagi here in Central Pennsylvania, right here in State College. Nyla helped to organize and lead students in partnership with other community organizations at a very critical moment in State College, in our nation, and in our world. As the president of Black Caucus, Nyla also chairs the Black Leadership Council and serves as a voice from the Black student community to the university's highest levels of administration, including the president and the board of trustees. Members of Black Caucus constantly refer to Nyla as one of the hardest working persons that they know. They look to her leadership, they look to her consistency in the midst of anything that's going on. Nyla sees a need, and she does whatever she can to change things and make them better. In the wake of the seemingly cyclically renewed focus on Black students in response to public Black death around the nation, Nyla wanted to make sure that the university did not simply pay attention to Black students in that current moment, but that the university made changes, systemic and structural changes that would impact students and their needs, especially students of color, in an ongoing manner. And so as a result, seeing this need, she and another student created an informal survey that focused on the challenges of students of colors, those challenges that they face at disproportionate levels here at Penn State. The challenges that they identified included students who are facing homelessness, food insecurity, and inefficient places to study, especially in the middle of having to be sent back home with COVID. She was concerned about this and wanted to make sure that the university and administration was aware of the needs and could begin to do something to meet the needs for those students. In addition to her leadership of Black Caucus, Nyla also served as the co-chair of Penn State's Student Code of Conduct Task Force, where she and a group of others worked to provide recommendations to improve the Student Code of Conduct in ways that, as she said, can better hold students accountable for hateful speech. Nyla is also an environmental justice intern with the Sustainability Institute at Penn State. I have the privilege of teaching Nyla in her last African American Studies course through our capstone course in the department. Nyla is a brilliant scholar with an inspiring ability to bring creative and critical analysis to readings and discussions consistently in class. During this year, I have also learned that Nyla is a poet, and I love that she has a creative balance to her being. She is deeply connected to the people, especially the Black community, and her love for them, her love for us, is reflected in her writing, in her poetry, in her activism, in her scholarship. Nyla is a graduating senior in African American Studies and Political Science, and simultaneously, she is a first-year graduate student in the School of Public Policy. She has taken on a lot, and somehow she continues to consistently not only meet, but exceed expectations. Like one of her role models, Serena Williams, Nyla embodies strength, resiliency in the face of challenges, versatility in her approach to change, and she does it all with style, beauty, and grace. Dr. Candace Watts submitted the nomination for Nyla, but she's not able to be with us today. But this is what she says about Nyla. She says, I think she is just a delight to have around. It's amazing. So it's an amazing thing to watch, an excellent leader in action. So I'm lucky to have had the opportunity to engage with her inside and outside of the classroom and to see her thrive wherever she finds herself. She's one to watch. I agree. Nyla Holland is definitely one to watch. She is a force for good and a vessel for change. We honor and celebrate Nyla Holland today as a brilliant scholar, a justice strategist, a courageous ethical leader, and a creative talent who is making her mark on the world. So join me in congratulating Nyla Holland as one of the 2021 Rock Ethics Institute's Stand Up Award winners. Nyla Holland.
Thank you so much for that thoughtful and passionate introduction. You reminded me of some things that I did that I forgot, and some things that I've told you in meetings that I didn't know you remembered, and it was so thoughtful. Thank you so much, Dr. Mingo. I wanted to thank the Rock Ethics Institute for this amazing honor. It really takes a village to for a lot of things, and it definitely took a village to get me where I am today, with my family, my parents, my siblings, my friends, colleagues, classmates, folks I've served on executive boards with, fellow students, and many mentors, one of which is Dr. Mingo and also Dr. Candace Smith. I've also been mentored by other Rock Ethics Stand-Up Award winners, Rabiatu Jallo and Ali Diallo, and so many Black women at this institution who knew me since I was a freshman in my first semester and taught me all that they know, and I'm so grateful for their leadership and their friendship, and it really got me through the toughest times, but also some of the most joyous times that I've had here. I also want to just recognize Black Caucus as an organization. I was drawn to it when I first learned about it, and their history of student activism and its passion and its steadfastness to its mission is so powerful. And the elections for that are later tonight, so I will no longer be the president after that, but I'm so looking forward to how the organization grows and moves through this new age that we are in. In closing, we cannot rest until there's justice, and I'm really glad that I've had the opportunity to help advance that in some way at Penn State. I'm really grateful for this recognition. Thank you.
Thank you and congratulations, Nyla. So we will now turn to the final video featuring Stand-Up Award winner, Amy Mook.
When I was nominated, I was really shocked and surprised and really appreciative that someone was recognizing what I was doing. I think that the work that I'm doing, I do because I'm passionate about. I just personally enjoyed doing it. It wasn't something where I was looking to receive recognition for it. It was shocking because it's not something I was seeking out. I just thought it was something that I was doing just for fun, to be involved, to learn more about myself and others. So definitely was a big surprise. My RA freshman year, I believe, was the stand-up award winner, and I was like, he's doing some super cool things. Like, I hope I have the opportunity to do that. So wasn't really sure what that was going to look like, and it did take me a couple years to figure out where my voice was best going to serve. So I do wake up wanting to make an impact in the Penn State community and in other communities I'm involved with, but do not wake up thinking, what can I do for a stand-up award today? So myself coming in as a student with a disability, I was very shocked when I came onto campus. So I come from a small town in Pennsylvania where every single person there knows who I am, and they know about my disability. It's not really anything weird or out of the ordinary for them. I was treated as a normal person. So once I came to Penn State and started being treated a bit differently and having to advocate for myself in spaces where I didn't have to as much before, it was shocking. I definitely wanted to be a voice for not only myself to make sure that I had a good experience at Penn State and had equal opportunities to other students, but as time went on, I started to learn that I can also effectively communicate and advocate for my peers as well. I think that just in general, being willing to share my own story, have a voice, and put myself in those situations is something that my nominator really appreciated.
I would like to welcome Sarita Greer, who is the manager of the Anthropological Genomics Laboratory and a research technologist in the Department of Anthropology at Penn State. Sarita will introduce Amy to us.
Thank you, Ben. Good evening, everyone. My name is Sarita Greer, and it is my delight tonight to introduce Amy Milk to you all. I first met Amy in 2019 when she came into my office to interview for a research assistant position in Shriver Anthropological Genetics Lab, of which I am the manager. My first impression of Amy was of a shy, intelligent young lady who advocated for herself quite well. I decided to bring her on board, and she has been a key member of our lab ever since. Amy initially impressed me with her commitment to and understanding of the importance of ethical practice in human genetics research. The process of training undergraduates to consent participants in our research is usually arduous, as they do not understand the importance of communicating risk. Amy showed a desire to get it right. She quickly earned the respect of myself and her peers in the lab, and as we got to know her, we learned more of her advocacy journey. Amy often ate lunch in my office, and we quickly bonded over having physical disabilities and the struggle of navigating this large campus. Sometime into knowing her, Amy was chosen to represent students with disabilities and speak at a Penn State Board of Trustees meeting. She took the responsibility seriously and prepared content she felt would reflect on the many varieties of disabled persons on Penn State campus, even asking for firsthand accounts from others with disabilities different than her own. After speaking at the meeting, she came to my office for our usual lunch and described the frustration she initially felt at the meeting for not having been given much space to speak. But Amy was determined to be heard, and when given the opportunity to speak, she ran with it and informed the board that they were failing persons with disabilities at Penn State. Her words were effective, and after the meeting, many people in power who were there took her aside to exchange contact information and ask for her to elaborate on certain points she had made. The statement they took note of most was her explaining how in all her time as a STEM student at Penn State, she had never seen a single fume hood that was wheelchair accessible, not in any teaching labs, nor in any research labs. How could a wheelchair-bound student major in STEM at Penn State if they did not have accessible lab spaces? Earlier this year, I was invited to be a part of planning for the anthropology department's new building. And during those meetings, with Amy in mind, was able to advocate for ADA accessibility in the department's future genetics lab suite, including a lab room that is fully ADA accessible, many convertible benchtops, handicap accessible sinks, and of course, a wheelchair accessible fume hood. Thus, creating future space not only for disabled students, but for disabled faculty. Despite being physically disabled myself, I had never thought to push for a more accessible lab space. Never advocated for myself, even when I was a wheelchair-bound student, and had to delay taking my required chem labs until I had finished rehabilitation and could stand for the 3 hours again. Not until I met Amy and was inspired by her bravery had I spoken up for myself or others like me. And now an inclusive lab space will exist on Penn State's campus. Amy has also served as the web manager for the PSU Access Club, who advocate for a more inclusive campus, and as a representative for the Diverse Ability Committee. Amy's work as a Stanford State peer educator has influenced many more future STEM researchers and students of all majors at Penn State, with the hope that when they are in positions of power, they will be informed to create inclusive environments, just like Amy informed me. But for Amy, inclusivity does not end with disabled persons. During her time with Stanford State, and as a recipient of a Student Engagement Network Remote Innovation Grant, Amy took advantage of opportunities provided through these programs to understand her own acts of bias and discrimination, as well as better consider ethical reasoning and ethical leadership in these pursuits, thus showing her drive for ethical inclusivity and wisdom that there is always room for personal growth. Amy's journey into advocacy did not start with her own interests in mind. From the age of 5 to 16, Amy watched her father's battle with cancer. Despite constant trips to hospitals and doctor's appointments, Amy held leadership positions within her community and school, organizing fundraisers for cancer research alongside organizing your normal high school events like prom. Unfortunately, Amy's father never got to see her attend the prom she organized. After her father's passing, she started a mission to directly support cancer patients undergoing treatment called Donations for Dad. This funding covered the items she witnessed firsthand a cancer patient needed, items that were not typically considered by insurance companies and other fundraising organizations. Things like gas to treatment centers, a dinner date with their child, and items to make treatment and recovering from surgery more comfortable. While at Penn State, Amy joined the group Sideline Cancer and now serves as its president. This small group of advocates have raised awareness in the State College community about the deadly and virtually untreatable pancreatic cancer. This organization has also impacted my life as I have walked alongside my best friend these past 2 years in her battle with breast cancer. Sideline Cancer has sent my best friend items to make her battle easier and brighten her 2 young daughters' day. If it were not for Sideline Cancer and Amy's role there, my best friend would not have received this support. In discussing Amy's journey alongside her father, I understood better why she knew the importance of communication and consenting participants for genetics research. She had witnessed her father's inability to understand his doctors and felt the frustration that they could not make informed decisions simply due to poor communication. Her frustration and the lack of ethical practice by physicians in this matter have led to her pursuing a master's in genetic counseling and public health. Amy desires to affect change in the healthcare system that results in better communication between physicians and their patients. She will work to fill that gap in understanding as a genetic counselor while working towards that overall goal. Amy has identified inequality for persons with disability on this campus and spoken up on their behalf, resulting in a new awareness both for her peers and those in positions of power around her. She recognized a patient's right to make informed decisions and the lack of understanding most patients have when speaking with their physician, and has chosen to dedicate her life to filling in that gap. She has done all of this while being an exemplary STEM student, losing her father, and walking through life as a disabled person herself. Amy has never compromised her convictions, and she has always sought to educate herself of inequalities beyond her own experiences. She has challenged her peers and her superiors to consider their ethics and their biases. She has been a shining example of ethical leadership. I know Amy's advocacy work won't stop here and have impacted many on this campus and will continue to impact many in the future. Amy, I am so grateful you walked into my office that day in 2019. It has been a pleasure to know you and be your boss, and I hope to remain your friend and cheer you on everything you will accomplish in life. Without further ado, 2021 Stand Up awardee, Amy Mook.
Thank you so much, Farida, for such a heartfelt introduction. To say that I'm honored to be receiving this award is certainly an understatement. It's felt like such a full circle moment for me to be receiving this award shortly before graduation, and seeing how much I've developed from that young freshman version of myself that stepped onto Penn State's campus back in fall 2017, which even saying that makes me feel a little bit old right now. But I do have kind of a long list of people that I would like to give a brief shout out to for the many contributions they've had at my experiences at Penn State. So the first one is definitely to everyone involved at the Rock Ethics Institute for allowing me to be a recipient of this wonderful award, and for their efforts with the Institute and recognizing individuals on campus for all these various efforts. Admittedly, I didn't know much about the Institute prior to being nominated, but it has been nothing short of wonderful interactions with everyone since I was nominated. I really appreciate the consideration and your allowance of me being a recipient. I'm very grateful to carry this title and to hopefully encourage future leaders at Penn State in all of their efforts. I also want to give some shout outs to some of my attendees today. So Emma, who is the program coordinator of Stanford State, deserves so much appreciation for giving me the space to learn and grow while I was here. Becoming a peer educator and program assistant for her is really what started this journey to disability advocacy on Penn State's campus and in the local community. I was really able to learn how to have difficult and uncomfortable conversations in an effective manner just because of her support and encouragement. And then all of the lovely individuals from Student Disability Resources, including Leah, Kim, Deb, I'm sure I could name a few more, who have dealt with all of my obnoxious emails and provided me so many opportunities in return. They've sat there as a listening ear, allowed me to share my perspectives as a student with a disability, and even asked for that feedback many times to improve the experience for myself and for others. And the many notable events that I've been involved with around disability advocacy are all due to the opportunities that they gave me, including getting the opportunity to speak with Judy Heumann, which is definitely one of my top memorable experiences here at Penn State, despite how crazy behind the scenes was that day, but we won't talk about that. And then my research team from Dr. Mark Shriver's lab have been so accommodating and supportive in my endeavors with undergraduate research, which has been so valuable both personally and professionally. In addition, my Student Engagement Network Remote Innovation Grant coaches who showed me how to explore ethical leadership in that setting based on my interest of scientific research. It wasn't something that I had done previously, and they were always a weekly encouragement to help me keep finding that why, even in the midst of grad school applications, which felt like they were never ending in that moment. And then Sarita, the wonderful woman that you just heard from a minute ago, is my lab manager, but I really don't feel like that title fits our relationship very well. At the end of the day, she's the person I text when my car is snowed in and I can't get into the lab, when I'm having another midlife or mid-college crisis, I guess I could say, and need to sit down and have a cup of tea and have her talk me through whatever's going on. And also the person that I've been able to relate to about having a disability. Sarita, your guidance is appreciated more than I could ever express, and I'm so thankful for your constant support and encouragement. And then I think another very deserving shout out is definitely to my mom and the rest of my family. Penn State is a large place for a small town girl. So the decision to come here certainly was not an easy one, especially having a physical disability and not knowing all the situations that I would encounter and need to advocate for myself within. And it definitely was a nerve-wracking thought, but she answers all of my phone calls every single day to hear about what I'm stressing over or what next crazy thing I want to add to my long list of to-dos. And the only response that I ever receive from the other end of the phone is unconditional support. So she's definitely the one that taught me to stick up for myself and to really care for those around me. So I truly have her and the rest of my family to thank for giving me the confidence to not be afraid to be an advocate for myself and others. I'm sure there's many more that are either attending or that will watch this recording that I may be forgetting. I certainly would not be in the position that I am today without each individual that's contributed to my journey, provided guidance, been a mentor, and just given me the space to be myself and follow my dreams of attending this university. As I mentioned in that video, my RA was a stand-up award recipient, along with receiving many other recognitions from the university. And I was always amazed that he was able to be so involved at Penn State. I had no idea how I would ever build those relationships and connections. So to reflect back on these 4 years and see how many opportunities that I've had to take advantage of makes it so bittersweet to be graduating. I've truly loved the network and community that I've created, and it's going to be so hard to leave that. But it's also because of many of the people attending this event that have shaped me and influenced me and really prepared me for what's next, to be excited about what the future holds beyond graduation. And then I think that another thing that I definitely have to mention is that those I've chatted with over the past week know that my Lion Shrine Award is now my pride and joy. I emailed Ben and told him that I've always recognized these awards across campus of being high distinction, and it was always something that I used as a talking point to ask individuals why they received those awards and learn a bit more about their involvement with the university. And quite honestly, never expected for myself to receive this Lion Shrine Award or any sort of recognition in this capacity. And when I was thinking about it earlier, I wondered why I was so thrilled about the symbol of the Stand Up Award and this Lion Shrine. And I think it's because I don't view it as recognition of my efforts, because I really did all of that work out of passion, just for creating a positive environment for myself, my peers, future students. Ultimately, I think I'm just thrilled to have this award as a token of my Penn State experience, and looking at it and seeing all of the amazing opportunities and experiences and people that have contributed to my time here the past 4 years. So I'm really looking forward to carrying that with me wherever I go. It will certainly hold such a special place in my heart. So again, thank you all for this recognition. I do really appreciate it.
Thank you, Amy, and congratulations again. In our final part of the program, we'd like to take a few minutes to recognize our Stand Up Award winners from last year. The COVID-19 pandemic, it not only impacted this year's awards, but it also impacted last year. And unfortunately, we were unable to have a 2020 ceremony. So now I'd like to welcome Dr. Erin Height Forsyth, the Associate Director of the Rock Ethics Institute, who will share some about the 2020 winners and also provide the closing for today's ceremony.
So thanks so much, Ben. 2020 was challenging and unexpected in so many ways, especially for last year's winners of the 2020 Stand Up Award. After interviewing in person, learning that they won the award, taking photos, Penn State went remote and we weren't able to celebrate our winners like we wanted to or like they deserved. So I'd like to take some time to celebrate last year's winners: Divine Lipscomb, Aaron Brown, Priya Hosangadi, and Genevieve Miller. So I'll start with Divine Lipscomb. Divine is a rehabilitation and human services major who graduated in 2020. He was recognized for his work with the Restorative Justice Initiative, which is a university-wide coalition of faculty members, graduate students, staff, and community groups dedicated to restoring and empowering individuals that are incarcerated through education and meaningful engagement in civic life. When we talk about incarceration and justice, we usually talk about victims and offenders. Divine argued that instead, we should take a more holistic approach to how we think about justice and incarceration. How do we make everybody whole? And what is our responsibility to all members of society? After meeting Divine, we could immediately see how he exemplified ethical leadership at Penn State. Divine used his personal experience, immense internal strength, strong sense of fairness, generosity, and doing what was right to be an ethical leader. In his ethical leadership in the classroom and in the community, Divine shifts how we think about justice, incarceration, and rehabilitation. Next, I'd like to talk about the amazing work of Aaron Brown and Priya Hosangadi. They're recognized for their work on issues of sexual violence in the Schreyer Honors College, Penn State community, and beyond. Aaron is a communication arts and sciences and women's studies major who is graduating this year. I had the privilege of meeting Aaron and Priya during their interviews, and I was so impressed by how Aaron identified a problem on campus, sexual violence, and committed herself to the difficult and often unseen and unrecognized work of institutional change. Priya Hasangadi, a human development and family studies major who graduated in 2020, demonstrated personal strength and determination, a willingness to listen, and the bravery to stand up for what was right, even when she did not get support to do so. Seeing that issues of gender-based and sexual violence are a persistent problem across all corners of the university, even among the highest achieving scholars on campus, Erin and Priya committed themselves to increasing awareness, highlighting the diversity of people impacted by the problem, and pushing for real material changes to education and curriculum. They show how we can draw from a diversity of experiences, both our own and others, to make classrooms, dorms, and our communities accessible, fair, and safe. Last but not least, I'd like to speak about Genevieve Miller, a political science and African studies major who graduated in 2020 and who was also honored with a stand-up award based on her work to promote justice and representation between campus and the local community. As borough liaison for student government, Genevieve worked with borough leadership on issues around access, racial justice and policing, and student concerns. Immediately, she stood out as an ethical leader, a careful yet brave thinker, someone who could clearly see the importance of representation for marginalized groups, and someone who recognizes the value of transforming institutions from the inside out. Genevieve made it clear that she doesn't do this work to be recognized, but did this work to transform her communities, both Penn State, the student government, as well as the broader community of the State College Borough. Committed to racial justice, community partnerships, and representation, Genevieve's ethical leadership demonstrated how change often starts locally in our own communities. So please join me in virtually congratulating last year's winners. So the students we've celebrated today, our 2020 and 2021 Stand-Up Award winners, teach us that ethical leadership is not only possible during difficult times, but deeply necessary and can make a significant difference in people's lives. In years like the one that we have all experienced between COVID-19, racial injustice and state violence, and a volatile political system, we need ethical leadership and the ethical clarity to do the right thing now more than ever. Instead of wondering when we can get back to normal, perhaps we should question what the new normal should be. How can we focus on our connections to each other? How can we transform the world to be better, more ethical, and a more just place for all people? Our Stand-Up Award winners, both this year and last year, help us answer these questions and show us that there is a way forward in their resilience, flexibility, and ingenuity. They show us that so much is possible during the most difficult of circumstances. Even if the world throws immense challenges at us, we can see that change is possible, and ethical leadership is so vital in transforming our lives at Penn State and beyond. And there's immense hope and resilience in the ethical leaders that we've honored today. And I can't wait to see how they continue to transform their communities through a commitment to justice, to truth, and to change. So please join me in congratulating our 2021 winners, Nyla, Tim, and Amy, as well as our 2020 winners. And I want to thank you all for being here, and I can't wait to see you all next year, hopefully in person.